Hey kids, good to see you again today. I'm Miss Carrie. Any of you out there new? What's your name? It's very good to hear that. I'm so glad to see you today. It gets pretty lonely around here, and so any chance I get to see you guys is a good day for me. I got some good stories. I've got a really fun song that I hope you'll join me with, and I want to get started. How about you? Clap your hands if you love stories. Clap your hands, I know you do. I'm so glad that we could be together. Glad to share a story time with you. Do you like my hood? What do you think? I bet you can guess what story I'm going to tell today. What story has a little girl with a red hood on her head? Red Riding Hood. So, once upon a time, there was a little girl who had a lovely red cape and hood that she liked to wear all the time. And that's why they called her Red Riding Hood. One day, Red Riding Hood's mother told her, I want you to take this basket with some cookies and some bread and some lovely lemonade to your grandmother who lives on the other side of the forest. And Red Riding Hood was a good little girl, so of course she was going to obey. But her mother said, and I want you to remember, I want you to go straight there and straight back. Do not leave the path in the forest. There are dangerous things out there, and I want you to be safe. And of course, Red Riding Hood agreed. But like all little boys and girls, sometimes she got distracted. And as she was walking along and skipping, she happened to hear a voice off to the side saying, "Hello, little girl." And she peered off between the trees and she saw that there was a wolf standing off between the trees. But Red Riding Hood was kind of a trusting little girl and she didn't get afraid. She just said, "Hello." And the wolf said, "Where are you off to today, young lady?" And Red Riding Hood said, "I'm taking this basket of cookies and bread and lemonade to my grandma who lives on the other side of the woods." And the wolf said, "Oh, really? Where is it she lives again?" And Red Riding Hood said, "Oh, just down the road on the other side of the mill down there. I'm sure you've seen it." And the wolf said, Yes, I know the house that is. But don't you think that the perfect thing to go along with the bread and cookies would be a bouquet of flowers? All grandmas love flowers, and there are some beautiful pink and purple ones just over here on the other side of these trees." Now, the wolf wasn't just saying this out of the goodness of his heart, of course. The wolf, when Red Riding Hood told him about her grandmother, had a plan in mind. He had already thought that he might have a nice snack of Red Riding Hood, but once she told him about her grandmother, he thought, well, what would be better than one snack except two? And if I play this right, I can eat them both. And so he told Red Riding Hood about the flowers, and she clapped her hands, completely forgetting her mother's instructions to not leave the path, and said, "Thank you so much, my grandma loves flowers." And then she was skipping off to find the flowers. The wolf, meanwhile, quickly made his way through the forest to the house that Red Riding Hood had described. And he rapped at the door, and he said, "Hello," putting on a pretend high voice. "Hello, Granny, it's Red Riding Hood." But nobody answered. You see, this particular grandmother was a very healthy, young for her age kind of grandmother, and she had gotten up early that morning and had taken all of her herbs that she'd grown in her garden and dried down into town to sell them, so she wasn't even home. So the wolf cracked open the door and saw Granny's bed was all made, no one was in it, and Granny's pajamas were neatly folded and resting on the pillow. And he thought, nuts. Well, I can still have half of my planned treat today. And so he quickly put on the pajamas that Grandma had left behind, and her nightcap pulled way down as far as he could get it over his ears. Well, by this time, Red Riding Hood had picked a whole armful of pink and purple and blue, lovely little flowers, and she had made her way back to the path and on the sidewalk to Grandma's house. And she made to the door and she knocked. She said, "Grandma, it's me, Red Riding Hood." And the wolf cleared his throat and he said, "Come in, outside. You'll have to let yourself in. I'm afraid I'm not feeling well today." And Red Riding Hood came inside, and she was very dismayed to see Grandma in bed like that. She said, "Oh, Granny, you sound so sick." And Granny said, "You'll have to come closer. I can't quite make it out with my poor weak eyes." And Red Riding Hood came closer and put her basket on the table, and she said, "Oh, Granny." And she was kind of suspicious, and she said, "Granny, what big eyes you have," because wolves have much bigger eyes than her grandma did. And the wolf just said, "All the better to see you with, my dear. Come closer." And Red Riding Hood crept a little bit closer and said, "Oh, Granny, what big ears you have," because they had come untucked from the cat. They were so big. And the wolf said, "Oh, dear, all the better to hear you with, but come closer anyway." And Red Riding Hood crept very close and said, "Oh, Granny, what big teeth you have." And the wolf said, "All the better to eat you with," and jumped out of the bed and quickly snapped at Red Riding Hood. But thankfully, Red Riding Hood had her hood, and all he got in his mouth was the hood as she scampered away. And he leapt around the room trying to catch her. But just at that moment, the back door opened, and there was Granny with her empty sack that had carried her herbs to market. And she gasped, and she took that sack as the wolf ran past and threw it over his head and caught him up. And she said, "How dare you chase my granddaughter like that? You just wait. We'll have you for stew tonight, and I'll make a muff for her out of your fur." And she put the sack tied out in the closet, and then she quickly comforted Red Riding Hood, who was still shaking with fear. And between the two of them, they enjoyed the bread and the lemonade and the cookies. And after they were done, Grandma walked Red Riding Hood back home safely to her house, where Mom was not at all thrilled to find out that Red Riding Hood had disobeyed her, but she was very, very happy that she had come home safe. You remember all of those face parts that Red Riding Hood pointed out on the wolf that she thought was her grandmother? Let's see if we can do them in a finger play today. All right? Let me see your fingers. I have 2 eyes to see you, 2 little feet to run. I have 2 hands to wave with, a nose I have but one, 2 little ears to hear you, a tongue to say good day. Can you say good day with your tongue out? Good day. 2 red cheeks for you to kiss. Mwah. And then I run away. Let's do that one more time. I have 2 eyes to see you, 2 little feet to run. I have 2 hands to wave with, a nose I have but one, 2 little ears to hear you, a tongue to say good day, 2 red cheeks for you to kiss, and then I run away. Our second story is about a little duck who's having a bad day. Once there was a little tiny baby duck who lived in a nest with lots and lots of brothers and sisters. Do you have any brothers and sisters? I just have one brother, but little duck had many, many brothers and sisters. And sometimes when you have that many brothers and sisters, it's easy to feel lost in the crowd, like nobody really is paying attention to you. This particular morning, little duck woke up feeling grouchy. The nest was only so big, you see, and he had spent most of the night being kicked and pushed by his brothers and sisters as they tried to get comfortable. And as a result, he hadn't gotten very much sleep at all. And so he woke up feeling unhappy and tired and miserable. But he didn't have too long to sit around feeling sorry for himself, because Mother Duck said, "Come along, children, we have to hurry and get down to the river." And so they all jumped out of the nest and started filing along behind Mother Duck in a row, making their way through the meadow and down to the river. But the littlest baby duck had woken up feeling so tired that he didn't have the energy to move very quickly, and he waddled along behind at the end of the line, moving slower and slower until when he looked up, the whole line of ducks ahead of him had disappeared over the hill and down toward the riverbank. He humphed to himself and said, "They didn't even notice. I could have been lost and they wouldn't have even cared." But he wasn't lost, really. He knew where he was going, and he made it over the hill and down into the river far behind all the other baby ducks. And while they were in the water, Mother Duck said, "Now hurry, children. I want you to catch as many bugs as you can for your breakfast." And the other ducks were already dipping their heads into the water, diving down and catching bug after bug and worm after worm. But the littlest baby duck was so far behind them that most of the bugs had already been eaten. And the ones that were left were so churned up in the muddy water from all the other ducks paddling and paddling that he couldn't find anything except one tiny little worm. And he humphed to himself, said, "They didn't even leave any bugs for me. They don't really care about me, do they?" And he felt even sorrier for himself. Now, the other ducks had all had their fill at this point, and so they began to play. And they took turns seeing who could swim upside down the longest with their head in the water and their little tails sticking up. And they took turns swimming in circles around and around as fast as they could paddle. But the littlest baby duck wasn't in the mood to play. He was too busy pouting. And anyway, his tummy was still grumbling. He was still hungry. And so mostly he paddled by himself by the side of the river, saying, "Poor, poor me. They wouldn't care if I wasn't here at all. They don't care that I'm not playing with them. Maybe if they don't care so very much, maybe I should just leave and be on my own." And so when they were done down by the river, Mother Duck led them back to the nest. And the other ducks had tired themselves out playing, and they were so satisfied and happy that they were perfectly content to curl up under her wing in the nest and take a nap. Littlest baby duck pouted some more as he sat by the edge of the nest. Eventually, they all dropped off to sleep except him. And he was still feeling so unhappy that it didn't take much of a stretch at all for him to climb over the edge of the nest and wander into the forest. "Maybe I'll be happier on my own," he said to himself. Well, he was really just a little baby duck. He was not ready to take care of himself. But he wasn't going to admit that, not until it started to get dark in that evening. And he didn't have a nest of his own. All he had was the nest where he had grown up. But he was too stubborn to turn around and go back. So he pushed some leaves together at the bottom of a tree and crouched down in them and said, "This is fine. I'll be happier here anyway." But it got darker. And he felt cold without the bodies of his brothers and sisters around him to keep him warm, and without his mommy to keep them under her wing. And he shivered. And he started to hear some noises that he didn't recognize because he was used to hearing nothing but the soft quacks of his family. He didn't know what a cricket sounded like for real, and so it sounded kind of creepy to him. He'd never heard an owl hoot that close to him before, and he buried his head under the leaves just a little bit deeper. And then he heard a very, very scary noise of footsteps, something coming closer and closer. And he buried his head as far as he could so that no one would see him. And then he heard, "Little duck, little duck." And he said, "Something's coming after me. Something is trying to get me." And he shivered and shivered and shivered until suddenly, coming from between the trees, he saw his mommy. Mother Duck saw his little tail sticking up out of the leaves and rushed over to him and said, "My precious little baby duck, why did you run away?" And he said, "I thought that nobody cared about me." And she said, "How could you think that? Your brothers and sisters are all worried about you back home in our nest. Why don't you come with me?" She took him back home, where he found all of his brothers and sisters hopping up and down over each other, saying, "Where were you? Where were you? We were so worried." And his oldest sister said, "Look, I gathered all of these bugs just for you because I knew that you didn't get a very good meal today." And he felt kind of silly for thinking that nobody really cared about him. And he burrowed deep into the wings of and the down of all of his brothers and sisters, and he felt very, very happy. Our song today is called Bim Bum. It's a clapping song, and it might be a little bit tricky, but I bet that you can do it. We only have to learn 3 things to do it, and then I'm going to also put some notes up here on the wall that'll help us do it, and I think we can get the hang of it. And even if we mess up and are silly, that's all right as long as we're having fun, okay? The first thing we learn is bim. Bim is just clap your hands. That's pretty easy, right? Bim. The second thing we learn is bum. Bum is a finger snap. And even if you can't really snap your fingers, you can just pretend. That's all right. Just put your fingers up in the air and do that. So now let's say bim, bum together. Can we do that? Bim, bum. Can we do it 2 times in a row? Bim, bum, bim, bum. Very good. There's only one more thing. Remember how I said there are 3? That third thing is biddy. That's where we tap our knees. Biddy. So now, let me hear you go biddy, biddy, bum. Remember, bum is snap, right? Biddy, biddy, bum. Good job. Try it one more time. Biddy, biddy, bum. Very good. Now let's put that whole thing together. Bim, bum, biddy, biddy, bum. Can you do it again? Bim, bum, biddy, biddy, bum. But it's a song, right? We have to sing it. Bim, bum, biddy, biddy, bum. Bim, bum, biddy, biddy, bum. Very good. And then we go, biddy, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, bim, bum. Biddy, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, bim, bum. Let's see if we can do that all together. All right, just follow along. It'll be up here, or you can do it with me. Or as long as we're having fun, it's all good, okay? Bim, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, biddy, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, bim, bum. Bim, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, biddy, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, bim, bum. Very good. Let's try it again a little bit faster. We got it. Bim, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, biddy, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, bim, bum. Bim, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, biddy, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, bim, bum. Watch. Bim, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, biddy, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, bim, bum. Bim, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, biddy, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, bim, bum. Bim, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, biddy, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, bim, bum. Bim, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, biddy, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, bim, bum. Bim, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, biddy, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, bim, bum. Bim, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, biddy, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, bim, bum. Can you do it faster? Let's try. Bim, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, biddy, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, bim, bum. Bim, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, biddy, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, bim, bum. Bim, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, biddy, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, bim, bum. Bim, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, biddy, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, bim, bum. How fast can you go? Bim, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, biddy, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, bim, bum. Bim, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, biddy, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, bim, bum. Bim, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, biddy, bum, biddy, biddy, bum, bim, bum. Bim, bum,
Yeah!
I had a good time with you guys today. And guess what? Summertime is coming up faster than you think even. And we have a lot of cool, fun things planned at the library this summer, mostly online. Pretty much all online. But that's okay. That's okay. We can still have a lot of fun this way, can't we? And I am really looking forward to you guys seeing all the fun things we have planned. So keep an eye on the library's Facebook page. And if you could get onto the library's email list, if you go to racinelibrary.info, you can sign up for our email list. And every week you get to hear about the fun things we're going to be doing. All right, are you ready for a big stretch? Let me see you reach for the ceiling and touch the floor. Stand up again. Let's do some more. Touch your head. And now your knees. Up to your shoulders. Like this, you see. Reach for the ceiling and touch the floor. That's all there is. There isn't any more. I'll see you guys next time, guys. Bye.